Hi everybody, Haley Detroit here with Keaghlan Ashley from Faceoff. We're going to be Lifecasting Troy today with some Alginate and 1630. So let's get started.
Go ahead and apply some Vaseline to the tape, the eyebrows, and the eyelashes to avoid any adhesion to the alginate. Alginate will create a suction often, so you want to give it a little bit of a release agent. Just putting it into the eyebrows. And do a light layer in the eyelashes as well. He's got very nice lashes, so I don't want to lose them. Just double check.
And should I keep my eyes closed at this point?
Yeah.
Just kind of keep the seal there.
It's not super important if you keep your eyes closed at this point. If you want to actually look up, I can get a little bit of the bottom lashes just to be safe. And you just want a very light coat. You don't want to glob the Vaseline on, just to act as a mild protectant and release agent. And then at this point, we're pretty much ready to go. Typically mix up a little more than we need, just in case. The worst thing to do when you're mixing alginate for a life cast is not realize you don't have enough and your life cast is too thick, or too thin. So probably be more than enough, but it's always better to have more than less with a life cast. There's nothing worse than realizing that you've made it too thin. I'm the worst at measuring. So. I always like to make sure. I usually end up with more than I need, but it's better than having none. So I always add a sparing amount of water to it as we go, and then start mixing. Thank you. I just want to mix it thoroughly. I like to use a bit of a warmer water temperature. This allows the alginate to cure a little faster. It's also a little more comfortable for your performer, your model, your actor, whoever's sitting for you. You just want to mix it so it's nice and still got a little bit of a runny quality to it. You don't want it too runny because you want to be able to capture the detail. And I always have them sit in their lap. A second more than enough. And we just dig in. Go ahead and close your eyes. You want to start from the center of the eye and kind of scrape forward. Air pockets in the eye area are pretty common if you don't kind of press into it. Make sure that you don't press too hard. You want to keep it nice, even. And you want to make sure to avoid the nostrils. Obviously, you don't want to suffocate your model. And you typically want one person to focus on the nose while the other person handles the face. It's always a good idea to do this with another person. If for whatever reason some starts to travel into the nostrils, go ahead and just kind of blow out hard. You're just going to focus on making sure to avoid the nostril, but you still want to obviously get an accurate casting, so you are going to go onto it. You don't need straws, you don't need any kind of stuff up inside the nostril area. You just want to make sure that you pay attention. keep an eye. And your model wants to keep their faces relaxed and neutral position, something that's easy to maintain, and hold that until the casting is set up. In the instance you're doing something like a severed head or something that does have an expression, you can have your actor create an expression, but make sure they hold that expression the entire time they're in that cast, just as long as until it's set up. And I want to get as close to the edge of the nostril as possible while still making sure that their airway is completely unobstructed. And we can start to see it starting to set up. So you won't, once you see it start to kind of congeal like that, you know your time is running short. So you don't want to fiddle with it too much. But you can, in instances, use some of that stuff to kind of bulk out your casting if you feel like there's any thick spots. But once it starts to set up completely, then it won't stick. So you know you've reached the point of no return. How you doing under there?
Mm-hmm.
We've got a nice thickness pretty much everywhere we need it. A little bit of droop right underneath the nostril, but that's fine. A lot of the times you're going to create a lip anyway. So at that point, you're ready to move on to plaster bandages. And then for your plaster bandages, we've used a warm water, so it'll help it kind of kick faster. You just want to saturate your bandage. I like to do about 3 layers of a bandage when I roll them out. I like to kind of squeeze out as much of the water as possible before I lay it down. This will allow the bandage to set a little bit faster. You're just going to go ahead and go straight on to your cast. You just want to rub it into the spots, making sure that it gets good contact everywhere. I typically like to use some of the larger sizes around just to give a good framework, and then the smaller sizes are obviously for little smaller areas of the face. If you find that an area or a bandage is too long, you can always just fold them up by like once more. And if it is too small, like I said, you can, or too long, you can fold it again. And you just want to rub it down, just making sure that all of the bandage is thoroughly mixed in with the water. How you doing under there?
Mm-hmm.
So, you always want to check back in with your client, your model. It's important to make sure that they're in a good frame of mind. A lot of times I'll play music while I'm life casting, something of their choice. Just helps keep them calm and relaxed. You want them to find their happiest place. For plaster bandages, I typically like working with something like an ultra fast plaster bandage. It kicks a little bit faster, that way you're out of the life cast a little bit faster as well. I'm just utilizing the long strips for the longer parts of the face. And I'm taking these smaller pieces, I'm gonna create little nose strips basically. That allows their nostrils to remain exposed so they can still breathe. That's important. Once you're making the cast, you'll obviously block up the nose once you've pulled off the life cast off their face, you can block that off for whatever medium you're casting in. In this instance, we'll be using 1630. We're doing a little bit of the chin? Okay.
Do we want another layer around the hairline kind of?
Yeah, we could do that. You want to make sure that your plaster bandages are thick enough that when they set up, they're rigid and they hold the form. Because alginate is a kind of floppy material, you need some kind of backing to hold its shape while you cast your medium into the cast. And since this is a throwaway mold, it's not super important that we get it smooth, but I like to make it pretty. Yeah, we're getting there. Just that top layer. We'd probably also do one more here if we wanted to get more chin detail. I'm so about that. I wish I knew that. Back on the Faceoff days. I think we were all like casting ourselves in silicone for like body parts when we were doing that. You always want to make sure that there's at least one person that's kind of with your model as you're doing a life cast. If somebody has to walk away, you still want someone there, just so they feel your presence. Some of the more timid people will hold their hand. Do you need to hold a hand? No. Yeah, a couple of the younger girls I've life casted, they're just like, I'm gonna hold your hand. They feel better. I also used my comfort pug once. She sat in someone's lap while I life casted them.
Oh, that's fun.
Mm-hmm. She was like, you should offer this as a service.
It's better with comfort books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're getting there for sure. Yeah, and at a certain point you can start to feel the hardness of the cast. There you go. It's actually probably better because branding.
Yeah, BJB Blue.
I always go for villain brows.
Yes.
Those totally match.
They do.
Super important to the
I
process.
can totally see the other side of his head. Nice.
Of course, you need some eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's also actually a good way to gauge how set the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what you're gonna go ahead and do is you're gonna start to move some faces and make some expressions underneath there. If you wanna lean forward a little bit, we can pop this off. Get underneath it. Just move your face, feel it lifting, and we're golden. So we got a couple little,
Wow.
yeah, we got a few little bubbles and stuff, but nothing that's not correctable. Yeah. We have to check in the casting, but that looks pretty good.
No eyebrows and no eyelashes. Perfect.
No eyebrows and no eyelashes. That's why you want to Vaseline it so you don't lose any. Cool.
Cool.
So, Keaghlan, can you tell me what are we doing with this white clay right now?
So right now I'm just going in and adding a little bit of the white clay to some of the air pockets that we had happen in the casting.
Okay.
That's super duper common, especially with alginate. We're just getting these little pockets, and instead of having to kind of correct the casting when we're done, we can actually fill these parts in beforehand and avoid having to do extra work there. I would rather kind of correct the life cast than have to spend some time sanding.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So.
And then you use the same method for the nose holes?
Yeah, you're gonna go ahead and, because you don't wanna have any of your 1630 fall through, you're gonna go ahead and block off the nose holes, and you can actually do a little bit of sculpting just to kind of correct any of the nostril area. You'll lose a little bit of detail when you're casting the nose sometimes, so. But typically, especially for prosthetics, you don't need complete accuracy. A lot of the times you'll kind of fill in the undercuts anyway, so it's not super duper imperative. You just wanna make sure that you've got a good nose shape to work with when you're sculpting.
Now for the nose, do you end up having to use a little bit of the bandage to kind of support the clay that's in there?
You can, depending on what you're casting into it. It's not necessarily a bad idea, but a lot of times I'll just go right in with clay, and that works just fine. So you can actually kind of just plug up your whole nostril there, and it typically. And that typically holds place. A lot of times I'll be casting stone, and I've never had any issues with it kind of pressing out, as long as you're not trying to like jam it back through. But
I think the 1630 just cures so fast that it shouldn't be an issue.
I've never had to use that, and it also makes it a little harder to, I would assume it would make it a little harder to kind of pull out when you're done. So it's just an extra step you don't really need.
Okay.
The white clay adheres pretty well to the plaster bandages.
Yeah, it looks like it.
And I just kind of smooth it down so you don't have any leaks. There's nothing worse than losing material through a stupid spot. Cool. And then once I'm done with that, I can see where it kind of pressed out.
It's like Play-Doh.
Yeah. And I can also use that to kind of finish off the nostril area. You can also take a little bit of water or alcohol. Actually, water's probably a little bit better. Kind of smooth this out as well.
Okay.
But a lot of these little bubbles, they'll come out in the casting, but those are super easy to kind of just nick off with a sculpting tool or a chisel, whatever you have handy. If you were to do a clay pour in this, you'd have to do a little bit of correcting as far as pour texture, but that's not really tricky. We've got enough of the texture to kind of create around it. So it's just about good. It's just a little extra. That way you can actually pour it a little fuller.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Doesn't have to be super pretty because we're not going to be utilizing that too much.
It smells real good.
Okay.
Are we ready? Because it's going to be quick, so. All right.
That's plenty.
Yeah, so much. Nice. Okay. Yeah, watch me stir. I didn't contribute very much today, so this is how I'm contributing.
I feel it.
By stirring the material for you.
You were a valid part of this team. There's no I in team. Yeah. There's a me, but that's neither here nor there.
Alright, that is just about good. Do the Rob Berman method. Scrapey, scrapey this way. Scrapey, scrapey that way.
Didn't know someone owned that method.
Yes, he was very determined that we do it the right way. Okay, so you're gonna do a little detail coat first and kind of
Yeah.
brush it in, and then we'll pour? Okay.
Just to make sure we get all the pores. They're not super important for a casting or a life cast if you're sculpting on a prosthetic, but it's nice to see.
Yeah. And that also kind of probably helps get any little air bubbles that might have been in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get in little holes.
It's so neat. You can just do it straight into alginate.
Yeah.
I love that. I am a convert.
Yeah, Mitch taught us that trick. We didn't know either.
That's awesome. And we can
This is gonna kick off soon. Yep. All right, here we go. How far do you think I should go?
I think that's good.
All right, so now we're just gonna pull this life cast out and see what we got going on in there.
Just gonna start with the clay. Usually like to pop the this first. Sometimes I'm able to get a second casting out of the alginate if I'm careful.
Oh yeah.
So. Good. Not that we need to, but you know, sometimes if
Yeah.
you're trying to. There we go.
Nice.
And here we have the finished casting.
That looks awesome. We just need to clean off the little bit of clay on him, and then he's good to go. These are all our extra pores.
Cool. He's a little squishy still. That's
More
awesome.
guys for you.
So now we've got the finished casting, which it's really awesome. You can go straight from your Alginate Lifecast to the 1630 directly. This can save a lot of time for when you're working, especially if you've got an actor, and you want to make sure that you've got a good casting of them before you send them off on their way. Being able to do like a quick little slush cast or a little pour didn't take very long at all. They can wait while that sets up, and then you can see if you need to redo the casting. So that's really awesome. It's definitely become a really cool tool in my arsenal for shop work, so pretty happy with it. There's a little stuff here and there that can be shaved off, but otherwise this is a nice workable casting that I can, either sculpt straight from or I can make a corrective positive from. So, yay.
All right, well, thanks so much for joining us today, Keaghlan. Everything turned out really great. The 1630 Lifecast of Troy was super fun. The Alginate mold came out really well. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come down here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.